Hey there, time traveller. Come on in, pull up a volcanic rock, get comfy. I know. You're probably watching this from your climate-controlled room, maybe wrapped in a blanket that doesn't smell like sulfur and impending doom. Lucky you. Tonight, we're going somewhere a bit warmer. Actually, scratch that. We're going somewhere that makes your worst summer day feel like a gentle spring breeze in comparison. We're heading to Pompeii, 79 CE, where the only thing hotter than the Mediterranean sun is the 17,000-foot column of superheated gas and rock that's about to turn this thriving Roman resort town into history's most terrifying time capsule. So grab your toga, practice your Latin, and for the love of Jupiter, don't get too attached to your lungs. Welcome to the day that made everyone in the Bay of Naples suddenly very interested in real estate further north. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and while you're at it, hit that subscribe button harder than Vesuvius hit Pompeii. Trust me, you'll want to stick around for this one. Close your eyes and picture this. It's August 24th, 79 CE. You wake up in Pompeii, one of the Roman Empire's favourite vacation spots. About 20,000 people call this place home, from wealthy patricians with their elaborate villas to slaves who sleep on kitchen floors. You're somewhere in the middle, not drowning in gold like the elite, but not scraping the bottom of the social barrel either. Your family runs a bakery, which in ancient Rome is like owning a coffee shop in Seattle. Essential service, decent money, and everyone knows your name whether you want them to or not. The morning light filters through wooden shutters into your small room. No glass windows here. Glass is for the super rich or the super important, and you're neither. The sounds of the city are already in full swing. Cartwheels grinding against stone, merchants screaming about their totally legitimate, definitely not stolen goods, and somewhere a rooster is having what sounds like an existential crisis. Just another morning in paradise. You drag yourself out of bed, and immediately your feet hit cold stone. No fuzzy slippers, no heated floors unless you're wealthy enough for a hypercaust system, which you're not. Your morning routine would make a modern teenager weep into their smartphone. No hot shower, no deodorant. No coffee, because coffee hasn't been invented yet, which honestly explains so much about Roman crankiness. You splash water on your face from a clay basin, maybe scrape your skin with a bronze strigil if you're feeling fancy, and throw on your tunic. It's basically a big shirt that goes to your knees. If you're leaving the house for something important, you might wrestle with a toga, but let's be real. Togas are like wearing a fitted bedsheet in public while trying to maintain your dignity. Most days, you skip it. Breakfast in 79 CE Pompeii isn't exactly Instagram worthy. Some bread dipped in wine because apparently Romans think alcohol is a morning beverage. Maybe some cheese if the household slaves are feeling generous. Some olives or figs if you're lucky. Your beverage options are wine, watered down wine, or water that tastes like the lead pipes it travelled through. The lead probably isn't great for your brain, but hey, at least you're not drinking from the same water source your neighbours use as a toilet, so that's something. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, or rather, the volcano in the backyard. Vesuvius sits there, looming over the Bay of Naples like a sleeping giant who forgot to set his alarm clock. It's been rumbling lately, little tremors that make the cups dance and the dogs nervous. But the old-timers, those ancient Romans who've survived everything from Gallic invasions to eating their wife's cooking, they say it's always done that, nothing to worry about. The soil on its slopes is incredibly fertile. Best wine in the empire comes from those vineyards. The mountains being good to Pompeii. Sure, there was that big earthquake 17 years ago that knocked down half the city, but you've rebuilt. You always rebuild. That's what Romans do. What you don't know, what nobody in Pompeii knows, is that Vesuvius isn't just a mountain with indigestion. It's one of the most dangerous volcanoes in the world, and it's been building pressure for centuries, like a teenager holding in a sneeze during a silent prayer. The fertile soil everyone loves? That's volcanic ash from previous eruptions, packed with nutrients from incinerated plants, animals, and probably a few unfortunate farmers who were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Those little tremors? That's magma moving through the Earth's crust like an underground subway system designed by a madman. The Romans don't even have a word for volcano. The concept doesn't exist in their worldview. Mountains are mountains. Some mountains have fire inside, like Etna in Sicily, but that's just the gods being dramatic. Vulcan, the god of fire and metalworking, must have his forge down there somewhere. Maybe he's making weapons for Mars. Maybe he's just having a bad millennium. Either way, it's god business, not human business. You make the right sacrifices, you should be fine. Right? Wrong. So spectacularly wrong that future geologists will use your city as a textbook example of why you should pay attention when mountains start acting suspicious. You head out into the streets, and immediately you're hit with the full sensory assault that is urban life in the first century. The smell hits you first. It's a complex bouquet that would make a sommelier cry, but for all the wrong reasons. Human sweat, animal dung, rotting garbage, fresh bread, grilled meat, and that distinctive tang of garum, the fermented fish sauce, Romans put on literally everything. It's like someone decided to combine a fish market, a gym locker room, and a public toilet, then added just a splash of bakery for false hope. Your nose doesn't adjust, it surrenders. The streets are narrow, maybe 10 feet wide in most places, with tall apartment buildings, called insulae, looming on either side. These architectural disasters are Rome's solution to urban housing. Stack people up like cordwood, charge them rent, and hope the whole thing doesn't collapse. Which it does, regularly. But hey, population density isn't going to achieve itself. The buildings lean toward each other at the top, creating canyon-like streets where sunlight is a tourist who got lost and never comes back. Stepping stones cross the streets at intervals, and you hop from one to another like the world's least exciting game of hopscotch. These aren't just quaint urban planning. They're essential for keeping your feet out of the river of liquid horror that flows down the streets. It's rainwater, human waste, animal waste, kitchen slops, and whatever else people feel like tossing out their windows. There's a law against throwing chamber pots out of upper-story windows, but laws are more like suggestions when there's no one around to enforce them. The fine for dropping a chamber pot on someone's head is probably less than the cost of carrying it downstairs. So you do the math. The noise is incredible. Everyone's shouting. Not because they're angry, though some definitely are, but because that's just how you communicate in a Roman city. Merchants hawk their wares like their lives depend on it, which they probably do. Fresh fish, so fresh it's still complaining about being caught. Bread, get your bread, made with only slightly questionable grain. Cart drivers curse at pedestrians in multiple languages, because Roman diversity means everyone can be insulted in their native tongue. Somewhere a blacksmith is hammering metal with the enthusiasm of someone who really, really hates that particular piece of iron. Dogs bark, children scream, and a street musician is doing something to a flute that might technically be considered a war crime under the Geneva Convention, if the Geneva Convention existed, which it doesn't. So the flute torture continues. You pass the thermopolium, ancient Rome's answer to fast food. Large clay pots called dolia are embedded in an L-shaped counter, each containing different hot foods. The menu is extensive if you define extensive as various things swimming in garum. There's lentil stew, chickpea mash, something that might be fish, or might be yesterday's lentil stew that's evolved sentience and is planning escape, and bread, always bread. Romans are more obsessed with bread than a food blogger at a French bakery. They have bread for breakfast, bread for lunch, bread for dinner, bread for snacks, ceremonial bread, bread shaped like genitals for fertility festivals, which is a real thing that exists because Romans never met a celebration they couldn't make weird. The social hierarchy is on full display as you navigate the crowds. Slaves hurry past, carrying loads that would make a pack mule file a workers' compensation claim. You can identify them by their simple tunics and the way they carefully avoid eye contact with free citizens. Making eye contact with your social superiors is like playing chicken with someone who can legally have you beaten. Better to study the fascinating architecture of your own feet. Freedmen, former slaves who've earned or bought their freedom, run shops and businesses. Some of them are wealthier than freeborn citizens, which creates the kind of social awkwardness that makes family dinners interesting. Sure, I used to be property, but now I own more property than you do. Pass the garum. The social mobility is real but limited. You can buy your way to wealth, but not respectability. Money talks, but breeding whispers, and in Rome, everyone's listening to the whispers. Women of status glide through the streets with their attendants, their hair in elaborate styles that must take hours to create without hairspray, curling irons, or the blessing of YouTube tutorials. These hairstyles are architectural marvels. Towers of curls, braids, and pins that defy both gravity and common sense. One good tremor and those things are coming down like the walls of Jericho. The amount of time Roman women spend on their hair makes modern beauty routines look like a quick splash of water and a prayer. And speaking of tremors, there's another one. Just a little shake, like the earth is clearing its throat. A few roof tiles clatter to the ground. A poorly stacked display of pottery commits ceramic suicide. People pause for a moment, that instinctive freeze when the ground reminds you it's not as solid as you'd assumed. Then everyone goes back to their business. What are you going to do? Cancel your plans every time the earth wiggles. You'd never get anything done. Besides, tremors are like rain in Britain or corruption in politics. Just part of the landscape. You make your way to the Forum, the heart of the city. It's like a mall, courthouse, church, and town square had a baby and raised it on a diet of marble and ambition. Columns stretch to the sky, creating shaded walkways where people conduct business away from the sun that seems personally offended by the existence of shade. The temples gleam white in the morning light. There's Jupiter at the north end, looking properly imposing and king of the gods-ish. Apollo to the west, where priests conduct sacrifices that smell like a barbecue gone wrong. The smoke from burning incense mixes with the smoke from burning animal fat, creating a theological air freshener that makes you walk a little faster. The Forum is where deals are made, justice is dispensed, and gossip is distributed with an efficiency that would make social media jealous. Men in togas cluster in groups, discussing business with the intensity of people who have nothing better to do because they've assigned all the actual work to slaves. Politics, trade, racing horses, whose wife was seen talking to whose husband. It's all here in the world's oldest continuous talk show. The acoustics are excellent, which means everyone's business becomes everyone else's entertainment. You're here to check on a grain shipment for your father. The family bakery needs a steady supply of wheat from Egypt, and with all these tremors, shipping schedules have been about as reliable as a sundial in a thunderstorm. The port isn't far, maybe a 30-minute walk, but in this heat, it feels like a journey to the underworld. And honestly, the underworld might smell better. At least there, the dead have an excuse for their hygiene. The walk to the port takes you through neighbourhoods that each have their own distinct personality and smell. There's the Fuller's District, where they clean clothes using human urine as a bleaching agent. Yes, you read that right. People literally pee in pots outside the fulleries, and workers collect it to wash your toga. It's recycling at its most disgusting. The ammonia in urine is great for getting out stains, apparently. The Romans are nothing if not practical. Still doesn't mean you want to hang around and watch the process. The Fullers actually put out special pots for public urination, and there's probably someone whose job title is Urine Collection Specialist. They probably don't lead with that at parties. You pass the metal workers' quarter, where the constant hammering creates a rhythm that would be almost musical if it wasn't slowly giving everyone in a 3-block radius permanent hearing damage. Sparks fly from doorways like tiny falling stars that could definitely set your tunic on fire if you're not careful. The smell of hot metal and coal smoke adds another layer to the urban perfume you're already wearing. By the time you get home, you'll smell like you've been marinated in Eau de Pompeii, a fragrance no one's bottling for good reason. The theatre district is quieter this time of day. The large theatre can hold 5,000 people, which is basically a quarter of the city's population. When there's a good show, the entire city practically shuts down. The smaller covered theatre, the Odeon, is more intimate, maybe 1,500 seats. You've seen performances in both. Comedies mostly, full of jokes about clever slaves outwitting their dumb masters, unfaithful wives, and men who can't tell the difference between their wife and a prostitute after too much wine. The special effects are primitive. Thunder is just some guy shaking a sheet of bronze backstage. Lightning is a torch waved really fast. Rain is handful of pebbles thrown on the roof. But when you don't have Netflix, even bad theatre is good entertainment. Street dogs follow you hopefully, like you might suddenly decide to become their personal food dispenser. They're mangier than modern dogs, these urban scavengers. They survive on scraps, stolen food, and the occasional kindness of soft-hearted citizens. One particularly optimistic mutt has been following you for 3 blocks now, apparently convinced that if he just believes hard enough, you'll manifest some meat. His faith is touching, but misplaced. You can barely feed yourself, let alone every stray in Pompeii. The port district announces itself through your nose before your eyes. The smell of rotting fish is so powerful it's almost visible, like a green fog rolling in from the harbour. Mixed with tar, salt, sweat, and the unique aroma of too many people in too small a space, it creates an olfactory experience that makes you nostalgic for the simple days when you only had to smell garum and sewage. Your eyes water, your nose tries to close itself. Your breakfast considers making a reappearance. The port itself is smaller than you'd expect for such a prosperous city, but it gets the job done. Ships arrive daily from all over the Mediterranean. Grain from Egypt, wine from Greece, olive oil from Spain, slaves from wherever Rome's currently conquering. The human cargo is the worst part. You see them sometimes, chained together, eyes dead before their bodies catch up. But that's the economy. Rome runs on slave labour like a machine runs on oil. Take away the slaves, and the whole system collapses faster than a cheaply built insula. It's a moral blindness that future centuries will judge harshly, but right now, it's just Tuesday. The harbour master's office is a squat building that smells like every sailor who's ever lived has stored their dirty sandals inside. The walls are stained with salt, sweat, and what you hope is just spilled wine. The clerk is a freedman with ink-stained fingers and the permanent squint of someone who spends too much time reading bad handwriting by oil lamp light. His desk is covered in wax tablets, the ancient equivalent of spreadsheets, except harder to update and impossible to back up to the cloud. You explain about your father's grain shipment. He checks his tablets with the speed of a glacier racing a mountain. Each tablet requires careful examination, cross-referencing, and occasional muttering in what might be Greek or might just be cursing. Time moves differently in bureaucratic offices. Minutes stretch like taffy. You age visibly while waiting for simple information. Yes, the Egyptian grain arrived yesterday. No, it hasn't been unloaded yet. The dock workers are arguing about wages again. They do this roughly every other Tuesday. It's like a scheduled performance. They demand more money. The ship captains threaten to use their own crews. Everyone shouts for a while. Then they compromise on exactly what they were paying before, plus maybe a cup of wine. Labour negotiations, Roman style. No unions, but plenty of unity when it comes to making life difficult for anyone trying to run a business. You slip the clerk a small coin to ensure your family's shipment doesn't accidentally fall into the harbour or develop a mysterious case of being someone else's grain. Bribery isn't just accepted here, it's basically part of the cost of doing business. Like a shipping fee, but more honest about where the money actually goes. The clerk pockets the coin with practiced ease, suddenly much more interested in ensuring your grain arrives safely. Amazing how financial incentives improve customer service across all historical periods. On your way back, you decide to take a detour past the amphitheatre. It's one of the oldest stone amphitheatres in the Roman world, built way back in 80 BCE by some magistrates who apparently thought what Pompeii really needed was a place where 20,000 people could watch other people die for entertainment. It's older than the Colosseum in Rome, though not as fancy. But then again, what is? Rome likes to remind everyone that it's the capital by making everything bigger, fancier, and more expensive. The amphitheatre is empty today, but there are games scheduled for next week. You can see slaves setting up the underground passages where they'll keep the animals and gladiators. The logistics of these events are insane. You need to transport wild animals from Africa, keep them alive and angry enough to be entertaining, train gladiators who probably don't want to die, coordinate with priests for the opening ceremonies, arrange for musicians, coordinate the execution of criminals during the lunch break, because apparently Romans think capital punishment goes well with a midday snack. It's event planning with a body count. The gladiators themselves are celebrities and slaves simultaneously, which is a weird contradiction that Romans just accept. There's this Thracian fighter named Celadus, who's basically the ancient equivalent of a sports superstar. Women literally scratch his name on walls with little hearts. Celadus makes the girls sigh, one graffito claims. He endorses products. His image is on cups and bowls. He probably has his own line of gladiator sweat for his superfans. But at the end of the day, he's still property. He can be sold, traded, or killed in the arena if the crowd's feeling particularly bloodthirsty. It's fame without freedom, which sounds like a philosophical paradox, but is just another Tuesday in the Empire. The betting on these fights is insane. People wager everything from pocket change to entire estates. They bet on who wins, obviously, but also on first blood, who loses a helmet first, who falls down first, whether someone will cry. There's probably someone taking bets on which spectator will faint from heat exhaustion first. Romans will bet on anything. 2 flies land on a wall. Someone's wagering which one moves first. It's a gambling culture that would make Vegas look conservative. Another tremor hits as you're walking. This one's stronger. Not earthquake strong, but strong enough that people grab walls and counters for support. A stack of amphorae outside a shop tips over, sending cheap wine flowing into the street like a really pathetic river of Bacchus. The shop owner curses in at least 3 languages, including some words that definitely weren't in your grammar lessons. You learn the best profanity during disasters. Dogs start barking all at once. That weird, synchronized canine alarm system that makes you wonder what they know that you don't. Birds take flight from the forum, a cloud of wings and panic heading inland. An old woman clutches her shopping basket and starts praying loudly to every god she can think of, which is a lot. Romans collect gods, like some people collect stamps. She's covering all her bases, from Jupiter to some obscure Egyptian deity she heard about once. Can't be too careful when the ground's doing things ground shouldn't do. But after a minute, it passes. People laugh nervously, make jokes about Vulcan dropping his hammer, or Neptune having indigestion. The shop owner starts mopping up his spilled wine, probably calculating how much he can wring out and resell. Waste not, want not, and if the customers detect a slight earthy flavour, well, that's just terroir. Life goes on. What else is it going to do? You finally make it back to the family bakery, where the real work happens. It's not just a shop with some ovens in the back. It's a whole complex operation. Multiple millstones powered by donkeys walking in endless circles, looking about as enthusiastic as you'd expect from animals whose entire life is turning left. They probably dream about turning right, if donkeys dream. The huge ovens can bake dozens of loaves at once, radiating heat that makes the Egyptian desert look temperate. Storage rooms for grain, mixing areas, rising areas, and a shop front where customers line up every morning for their daily bread, like it's a religious ritual. Which, honestly, for Romans, it basically is. Your father is in his natural habitat, which is to say, he's finding fault with everything. The new slave is grinding grain too slowly. The dough is too wet. No, now it's too dry. The oven temperature is wrong. That loaf is misshapen. This one is too dark. That one isn't dark enough. He's like a bread-based Gordon Ramsay, except with less swearing and more disappointed grunting. His standards are impossibly high, which is probably why the bakery is successful. That and the fact that people literally need bread to not die. He sees you and immediately puts you to work. No, hello son, how was your morning? Did you enjoy navigating the feces-strewn streets? Just straight to business. There are deliveries to make to regular customers, including some of the wealthy families who live in the fancy villas with their own private bath complexes and gardens that are bigger than most people's entire homes. Rich people bread is exactly the same as poor people bread, but you charge them more and they convince themselves it tastes better. Marketing has existed since humans figured out lying could be profitable. You load up a basket with fresh loaves and head back out. The afternoon heat is building now, that oppressive Mediterranean summer heat that makes you understand why Romans invented the siesta. The stone buildings radiate warmth like ovens, which is ironic since you just left an actual oven. The air shimmers above the streets, creating mirages that make you think you see water, but it's just more hot stone and disappointment. Your tunic sticks to your back with sweat. Your sandals feel like they're melting into the pavement. This is why Romans are so obsessed with baths. It's not cleanliness, it's survival. Your delivery route is like a tour of Pompeii's greatest hits. You pass the House of the Faun, one of the largest private residences in the city. It's got its own bathhouse, multiple gardens, and a bronze statue of a dancing faun that probably cost more than your family makes in a decade. The owners are those kinds of rich where they have slaves whose only job is to manage other slaves. It's slavery middle management, complete with performance reviews and quarterly beating quotas. Then there's the Villa of the Mysteries, with its famous frescoes that no one really understands. Some say they depict initiation rites into the cult of Dionysus. Others say it's just rich people with weird taste in art. Either way, the bread delivery goes to the back entrance because you're definitely not fancy enough for the front door. The slave who takes the bread looks at you with the universal expression of, "At least you get to leave." The tremors continue throughout the afternoon. Little ones, mostly, just enough to keep everyone on edge. A crack appears in a garden wall. A statue wobbles but doesn't quite fall. Each time, people freeze, wait, then continue with forced casualness. It's like the whole city is playing a game of the floor is lava, except the floor actually might become lava, and nobody wants to acknowledge it. Denial is a powerful force, especially when acknowledging reality means admitting you live next to a bomb. You're heading back from your last delivery when the big one hits. This isn't a tremor, this isn't a shake. This is the earth deciding it's tired of being solid and wants to try being liquid for a while. The ground rolls like ocean waves, if ocean waves were made of stone and hated you personally. Buildings sway like drunk patricians at a dinner party. Roof tiles rain down like deadly autumn leaves, shattering on the streets with sounds like breaking dishes at the world's worst dinner party. You drop the empty basket and grab the nearest wall, which is also moving, so that's not particularly helpful. It's like trying to steady yourself on a ship in a storm, except ships are supposed to move, and cities definitely aren't. A woman across the street isn't so lucky. A falling tile catches her shoulder, spinning her around and dropping her to her knees. Blood immediately stains her tunic. Someone screams. Multiple someones, actually. It's hard to tell where one scream ends and another begins. The human voice wasn't designed for this level of panic. The shaking goes on forever. In reality, it's probably less than a minute, but when the ground won't stay still, seconds stretch like warm honey. A crack races up the wall you're clinging to, like Zeus is unzipping reality. Somewhere, an entire building facade gives up and crashes into the street, sending up a cloud of dust and terror. The sound is incredible. Not just the crash of falling masonry, but the deep, grinding roar of the earth itself, like the world's largest stomach growling. Or like the world's largest monster, waking up hungry. Then, as suddenly as it started, it stops. The silence is almost worse than the noise. For a moment, nobody moves. Nobody breathes. Everyone's waiting for the next one, the bigger one, the one that finishes what this one started. But it doesn't come. Not yet. The city holds its breath, like a mouse that just heard a cat. Slowly, carefully, people start to move. The injured woman is helped to her feet, her shoulder already swelling. Others emerge from doorways, eyes wide, covered in dust and fear. Someone's crying. Someone else is praying. A man is staring at where his shop used to be, now a pile of rubble, with his life's work buried underneath. His expression is blank, like his mind simply refuses to process what his eyes are seeing. The human brain has a remarkable ability to just nope out when reality gets too real. You need to get home, now. The streets are chaos. Some are blocked by fallen debris. Others are packed with people all trying to go somewhere, anywhere, that feels safer than where they are. Families are calling for each other. Children are crying, dogs are howling, and underneath it all, that horrible anticipation. Everyone knows this isn't over. Earthquakes come in groups, like unwanted relatives at a festival. Where there's one, there's more, and they're all going to show up uninvited and wreck your house. You have to take 3 different routes to get home, doubling back when streets are impassable. One entire insula has partially collapsed, its cheap construction finally giving up after years of barely holding together. You can hear people inside, calling for help, but there's nothing you can do. You're one 16-year-old with no tools and no idea how to move several tons of rubble. Guilt twists your stomach, but survival wins. You keep moving. Heroes die young, and you're already pushing your luck just being outside. The bakery is still standing when you finally make it back, though standing is being generous. One wall has a crack you could fit your hand in. The ovens are damaged, one completely unusable, with its dome partially caved in. Broken pottery litters the floor, mixing with spilled grain and oil to create a slippery obstacle course. But your family is alive. Your mother has a cut on her forehead. Your sister is crying but unhurt. Your father is already assessing the damage with the grim determination of a man who's rebuilt before and will rebuild again. Romans don't do despair. They do pragmatic acceptance followed by intensive labour. "We sleep outside tonight," he announces. It's not a suggestion. Many families are making the same decision. Better to risk a night under the stars than be trapped under a collapsed roof. Your mother organises the evacuation with the efficiency of a general preparing for battle. Blankets, food, water, anything valuable that can be carried. The household slaves help, though you can see the fear in their eyes. When disaster strikes, they have even fewer options than free citizens, can't even run without permission. The garden isn't large, just a small courtyard with some scraggly fruit trees and your mother's herb patches that she insists have medicinal properties, but mostly just make the lentils taste weird. But it's open to the sky, which means nothing can fall on you, except bird droppings and divine judgment, small victories. As night falls, you can see the disaster's full scope. Fires have broken out across the city where oil lamps met falling debris. The Vigiles, Pompeii's combination firefighters and night watch, are overwhelmed. Their firefighting technique mainly consists of pulling down buildings to create fire breaks, which isn't super helpful when half the buildings are already pulling themselves down. The orange glow of flames flickers against the smoke-filled sky, creating a sunset that's all wrong. Nature's not supposed to provide mood lighting for disasters, but here we are. Your neighbours are setting up their own outdoor camps. Old Quintus from next door is loudly explaining that, in his day, Romans didn't run from earthquakes, they wrestled them into submission. His wife points out that in his day, he also thought bathing was suspicious, and teeth were optional, so maybe his day wasn't as great as he remembers. Their bickering is almost comforting in its normalcy. Even facing disaster, humans will find time to annoy each other about petty nonsense. But then you notice something else. Vesuvius, that familiar mountain that's always just been there, like a piece of furniture you stop noticing, is different. There's a glow at its peak. Not like a fire, more like the mountain is blushing, or bleeding light. The tremors have awakened something that's been sleeping for longer than anyone can remember. The mountain has insomnia, and it's about to make it everyone's problem. Sleep is impossible. Every time you close your eyes, there's another aftershock. Small ones, mostly, but enough to keep your heart racing and your muscles tensed. The city sounds different at night. Instead of the usual drunken singing and late-night arguments, there's the crash of delayed collapses, the calls of people searching for family members, the crackle of fires that the Vigiles can't contain. Pompeii is transforming from a vacation destination to a disaster zone, and the transformation isn't pretty. It's like watching your favourite restaurant slowly turn into a DMV office. You lie there, staring at the stars that seem weirdly bright without all the usual oil lamp smoke. The Milky Way stretches across the sky like a cosmic river, indifferent to the human drama below. You wonder if the gods are watching. If they are, they seem about as helpful as usual, which is to say, not at all. Maybe they're busy. Maybe they don't care. Maybe they're placing bets on which neighbourhood burns first. The gods have always been more interested in drama than actually helping. Morning comes without you really sleeping. It's August 25th now, though you won't know until much later that this date will be remembered for the next 2,000 years. Right now, it's just another dawn, albeit one that reveals a city that looks like it lost a fight with a giant. In the grey pre-dawn light, the damage is even worse than it seemed last night. Entire streets are impassable. Some buildings are just gone, reduced to rubble-filled lots. Others lean at angles that would make a geometry teacher weep. Pythagoras did not account for this. But here's the thing about humans, especially Roman humans. They're stubborn. As the sun rises, so does the city. Not in a triumphant way, more like a boxer who's taken a beating but refuses to stay down. People start clearing debris. Shops that can open do open. That thermopolium owner is already heating up yesterday's lentil stew, though his counter is cracked and his smile is forced. The human need for normalcy is stronger than logic. Everything's fine is a lie we tell ourselves to keep functioning. Your father, true to form, is determined to get at least one oven working. People need bread, he says, like it's a religious mantra, which for a baker, it basically is. Never mind that half the city is in ruins. Never mind that the mountain is glowing. Never mind that the ground won't stop shaking. There's flour, there's an oven that might work, therefore there will be bread. Roman pragmatism at its finest and most foolish. If the world ends, it ends with fresh baked goods. You're sent to check on the grain stores, see what's salvageable. The storage room is a mess, but most of the grain is okay. A few sacks split open, spilling wheat that'll be finding its way into cracks for months, if the building lasts that long. Which, given how things are going, seems optimistic. But you clean what you can, because what else are you going to do? Sit around waiting for the next disaster? That's not the Roman way. The Roman way is to work until you can't, then work some more, then die. It's not a great system, but it built an empire. Outside, the city is in a strange state of denial. Some people are leaving, loading whatever they can onto carts and heading for the gates. Smart people, but many are staying. They have businesses here, properties, lives that can't be easily packed into a cart. Besides, where would they go? Herculaneum? Stabiae? Those places are probably just as damaged. Naples is far, and who knows if the roads are even passable. The devil you know versus the devil you don't, and at least this devil has your favourite tavern. The tremors continue all morning. Not the big rolling ones from yesterday, but constant little shakes that keep everyone on edge. It's like the earth has developed a nervous twitch. Every few minutes, another reminder that solid ground is a temporary illusion. Dust falls constantly from damaged buildings, giving everything a greyish coating, like the world's least festive snow. Everyone looks like they've been antiqued. And then, around midday, Vesuvius clears its throat. That's what it sounds like anyway. A deep rumble that you feel in your chest, more than hear with your ears. Everyone stops what they're doing and looks toward the mountain. The glow at the peak is brighter now, visible even in daylight. something is very, very wrong. The mountain is done with warnings. It's ready for the main event. But still, people don't run. Not yet. Running would mean admitting that this is more than just another earthquake. Running would mean abandoning everything they've worked for. Running would mean the gods have truly abandoned Pompeii. So they stay, and they wait, and they hope that tomorrow will be better. Spoiler alert, it won't be. Tomorrow is about to become a very relative concept. The afternoon brings a new development. The ground around Vesuvius is smoking, not like a fire, more like the earth itself is steaming. The vineyard workers are fleeing down the mountain slopes, abandoning the grape harvest that was supposed to happen next month. They bring reports of springs drying up, of dead fish floating in streams, of the ground too hot to walk on in places. The mountain is cooking itself from the inside out. It's turned into the world's largest pressure cooker, and nobody knows how to turn off the heat. Your father finally admits defeat on the bakery. Not permanently, he insists, just until things settle down. The fact that things have been getting progressively less settled for the past 24 hours doesn't seem to factor into his optimism, but at least he agrees the family should prepare to leave if necessary. Your mother starts packing essentials with the grim efficiency of someone who's dealt with Roman disasters before. Money, important documents, some food, water, clothes. Not much. When you might have to run for your life, travelling light suddenly seems very sensible. That decorative statue of Mercury can guard an empty house. The Forum is a madhouse. Officials are trying to maintain order, but it's like trying to organise a stampede. Some magistrates are telling people to stay calm, that Rome will send aid, that temporary shelters are being arranged. Other officials are notably absent, having mysteriously urgent business in other cities. Funny how that works. The priests are having a theological argument about which god is angry, and what kind of sacrifice might appease them. The priest of Vulcan insists it's his god's domain. The priest of Neptune argues earthquakes come from the sea. The priest of Jupiter just wants everyone to know that whatever's happening, his god is still in charge. It's like watching middle management argue while the building burns down. Nobody wants to take responsibility, but everyone wants to be in charge of the solution. And speaking of burning, that's when you smell it. Sulphur, that rotten egg smell that makes your nose want to retreat into your skull. It's faint at first, just an undertone to the usual city smells, but it's getting stronger. The dogs smell it too. They're going crazy, howling and barking, and trying to run in every direction at once. Horses are stamping and refusing to be calm. Even the usually placid donkeys at the mill are braying like the world's worst choir. When animals that stupid get scared, you should probably listen. The smart money is leaving town. You can see the wealthy loading their carriages with whatever portable wealth they can manage. Jewellery, coin boxes, fancy dishes, that small statue of Mercury that's definitely not stolen from a temple, honest. Their slaves run back and forth, sweating under loads that would make a pack mule file a complaint with the Labour Board. The rich always have more stuff to save, which ironically makes them slower to escape. Poverty has its advantages. When all you own fits in a sack, running away is much easier. The poor can achieve escape velocity faster than the wealthy can inventory their silverware. But where do you run? That's the question nobody can answer. Vesuvius is to the southeast, the sea is to the west, mountains to the north and east. The obvious escape route is north along the coast toward Naples, but that road runs uncomfortably close to Vesuvius. South towards Stabiae? Maybe, but who knows if that's any safer. It's like being in a burning building, and all the exits lead through more fire. Geography has conspired with geology to create the perfect trap. The sun is setting again, painting the sky in shades of red and orange that would be beautiful if they weren't competing with the glow from Vesuvius. The mountain is putting on a show now. Not erupting, not yet, but glowing and rumbling like it's warming up for the main event. Lightning flickers around its peak, which is new and terrifying. Mountains aren't supposed to have their own weather systems. That's cheating. Your family makes the decision to leave at first light. Your father insists on boarding up the bakery like he's just closing for a holiday. The optimism would be touching if it wasn't so delusional. Your mother is more practical. She's already hidden the family savings in 3 different places, just in case you can come back. If you can come back. When you can come back, your father corrects, but his voice lacks conviction. Even Roman stubbornness has limits, and those limits are currently glowing and rumbling. You try to sleep in the garden again, but it's even worse than last night. The sulphur smell is stronger now, carried on a hot wind from the mountain. The tremors are constant, a rhythm of destruction that makes your teeth ache, and the sounds. The mountain is making sounds now, deep groans and rumbles, like the earth's own digestive distress. If mountains could have indigestion, Vesuvius has eaten something that violently disagrees with it. Probably several million tons of molten rock, but who's counting? Then, in the darkest part of the night, when even the stars seem to be holding their breath, Vesuvius stops being subtle. The explosion is unlike anything you've ever heard or will ever hear again. It's not just loud. It's a sound that rewrites your understanding of what sound can be. It's thunder, if thunder was solid. It's every door in the world, slamming at once. It's the voice of a god saying, "Surprise!" in the worst possible way. Your ears don't just ring, they file a formal complaint. The ground doesn't just shake, it jumps. You're thrown from your makeshift bed, landing hard on hands and knees. Roof tiles don't just fall, they launch themselves like clay missiles. Somewhere, an entire building gives up and becomes archaeology. The explosion echoes off the surrounding mountains, doubling and tripling the sound, until it seems like the whole world is screaming. Which, from your perspective, it basically is. And then you see it, a column of fire and smoke and something else, something that doesn't have a name, because humans haven't needed a word for it before. It rises from Vesuvius, like a giant's fist punching through the earth to fight the sky. It goes up and up and up, illuminated from within by lightning and fire, a pillar of destruction that makes the Tower of Babel look like a reasonable architectural project. This is what happens when the earth decides to show off. This isn't an earthquake. This isn't a fire. This is something new, something that the combined pantheon of Roman gods seems powerless to stop. The mountain is coming apart, and it's taking everything nearby with it. The smart people who left yesterday? They're geniuses. The people who left this morning? Merely very intelligent. Everyone still in Pompeii? Well, let's just say your life expectancy has shortened dramatically. You're about to become very historical. Panic doesn't begin to describe what happens next. It's more like the entire city simultaneously realizes it's made a terrible mistake. The streets fill with people, all trying to go somewhere, anywhere else. But the gates are clogged. Everyone's trying to leave at once, creating human traffic jams that would be comical if they weren't so deadly. Carts collide, horses rear, children scream. It's like Black Friday shopping, if Black Friday was held in hell and everything was on fire. Your family joins the exodus, what little you can carry strapped to your backs. Your father has insisted on bringing a bag of flour because apparently he thinks there might be baking opportunities in the afterlife. Your mother has the family savings and important documents. Your sister clutches her doll and tries very hard not to cry. You have a skin of water and a knife and a growing certainty that these possessions are about to become very irrelevant. You can't stab a volcano. The column from Vesuvius keeps rising. It's reached the clouds now, spreading out at the top like some poisonous umbrella. And then, as you watch, things start to fall from the sky. Not rain, not hail. Little pieces of rock, light and full of holes, like volcanic dandruff. They're warm to the touch, and they start accumulating immediately. This is pumice, though you don't have a word for it. All you know is that the sky is literally falling, and that seems like a very bad sign. When the sky starts throwing rocks, it's time to re-evaluate your life choices. The pumice falls like snow, if snow was made of rock and had opinions about your survival. It's light, so each piece doesn't hurt much, but there are millions of pieces, and they just keep coming. Within minutes, there's a layer on the ground. Within an hour, it's ankle deep. The stuff gets in your hair, your clothes, your mouth. It tastes like burned earth and broken dreams. It's nature's way of saying, you should have left yesterday. Walking becomes difficult. The pumice shifts under your feet like the world's worst beach sand. People stumble and fall. The elderly and injured can barely move. Some just give up, sitting down in doorways to wait for whatever comes next. The strong help the weak at first, but as the pumice gets deeper and the situation gets worse, it becomes every family for themselves. Roman civic virtue has limits, and those limits are apparently when rocks fall from the sky. The noise is incredible. Not just the constant roar from the mountain, but the sound of pumice hitting everything. It's like being inside a drum during the world's longest drum solo. Roof tiles crack and slide. Wooden beams groan under the weight. Already damaged buildings start to collapse, adding clouds of dust to the volcanic fog. Visibility drops to almost nothing. You could lose your family in this chaos just by letting go of hands. The world has become very small and very dangerous. And it's dark. Not normal dark, not even cloudy day dark. This is a darkness that seems to eat light. Oil lamps and torches barely penetrate it. The sun is gone, blocked by the massive cloud spreading from Vesuvius. It's midnight at what should be midday, and the only illumination comes from the occasional lightning in the volcanic column and the fires spreading through the city as lamps overturn and buildings burn. The gods have turned off the lights, and they're not coming back. You're maybe halfway to the gate when the first building collapse nearly gets you. An insula, already weakened by the earthquakes, finally gives up under the weight of pumice on its roof. It comes down like a house of cards made of stone and death. The family in front of you disappears under tons of rubble. One moment they're there, parents and 3 children struggling through the pumice. The next, they're archaeology. The dust cloud blinds you, fills your lungs, makes you cough until you taste blood. This is when you realise you might not make it. This is when hope starts to die. This is when the real horror sets in. You're not going to make it. The gates are still far away, clogged with desperate people. The pumice is getting deeper. Buildings are collapsing. The air is becoming harder to breathe, full of ash and sulphur and death. Your sister is crying openly now. Your mother's face is set in that expression that means she's refusing to acknowledge how bad things are. Your father has dropped the flower. Even his optimism has limits. The bag of flour lies in the pumice, like a sad metaphor for abandoned dreams. But you keep moving because what else can you do? Stand still and wait to be buried? At least if you're walking, you're doing something. It's the human need to try, even when trying is pointless. You're 16 years old. You've lived your whole life in this city, and now you're going to die in it. But you're going to die trying to live, which is somehow important, even though you can't explain why. Maybe it's just human stubbornness. Maybe it's hope. Maybe there's no difference. The pumice is knee-deep now. Every step is like walking through hot, rocky snow, while someone pelts you with more hot, rocky snow. Your legs burn from the effort. Your lungs burn from the ash. Your eyes burn from the sulfur. Everything burns except your actual body, which is going to come later in a way that makes this current burning seem like a gentle warmth. The mountain is just getting started. This is the opening act. Bodies are starting to appear in the pumice. People who gave up, collapsed, or were knocked down and couldn't get back up. The pumice doesn't care. It covers them with the same indifference it covers everything else. Some are still moving weakly, trying to dig themselves out, but it's like fighting quicksand made of volcanic vomit. The more you struggle, the faster you sink. Physics has joined forces with geology to ensure maximum suffering. A man near you is trying to dig his wife out. She fell when a larger piece of pumice hit her head, and now she's half buried and unconscious. He's crying and digging and begging the gods for help, but the gods are notably absent. You want to help, but your mother grabs your arm. She doesn't say anything. She doesn't have to. You can't save everyone. You probably can't even save yourselves. The mathematics of survival are brutal and simple. The column from Vesuvius has reached impossible heights now. It's like a tree made of destruction, trunk of fire and crown of ash spreading across the sky. Lightning flashes constantly within it, illuminating scenes of horror in strobe light glimpses. The roar is constant, so loud it's become like silence. Your ears have given up trying to process it. Everything is muffled, like you're underwater. Underwater in hell. Which isn't a place Romans really believe in, but Vesuvius is making a compelling argument for its existence. And then, because things weren't bad enough, the column starts to collapse. Not all at once, but in pulses. Pyroclastic surges, though you don't know that term. All you know is that walls of superheated gas and rock are racing down the mountain's flanks at speeds that make running pointless. They glow in the darkness, these death clouds, like the mountain is breathing fire. When they hit the edges of the city, buildings don't just burn, they explode. Wood vaporizes. Stone cracks from thermal shock, metal melts. These clouds rewrite the laws of what fire can do. The heat arrives before the surge itself. A wall of air so hot it makes the summer sun feel like a cool breeze. Your exposed skin immediately reddens. Your hair crinkles. The air becomes impossible to breathe, not just from ash, but from temperature. It's like trying to breathe inside an oven. People's screams cut off mid-sound as their lungs cook from the inside. The human body wasn't designed for these temperatures. It's like being hit by an invisible wall of pure heat. You're still too far from the gates. The surge is coming. You can see it rolling across the landscape like a glowing avalanche, swallowing everything. Trees vanish. Buildings disappear. People running ahead of it might as well be running from the sunrise. It's beautiful in the way that deadly things sometimes are. This rolling cloud of annihilation painted in shades of red and orange, and the black of ending. Death has never looked so spectacular. Your mother pulls the family into a building, seeking shelter that doesn't exist. It's a fullery, and the smell of old urine mixed with volcanic gases creates a final insult to your dying senses. Other people have the same idea. The small space fills quickly with terrified humans pressing together, hoping that walls will protect them from physics. They won't. Stone is just a slower way to die. Your sister has stopped crying. She's reached that state beyond fear, where the mind simply refuses to process any more horror. She clutches her doll and stares at nothing with eyes that have seen too much. Your father is praying, running through every god he can remember, offering promises he'll never have to keep. Your mother holds you all close, her practical nature finally overwhelmed by the impractical reality of a mountain exploding. Love is all she has left to give, and she gives it freely. Outside, the surge hits. The building shakes like a struck drum. The temperature spikes beyond human tolerance. The air becomes plasma, superheated gas that turns lungs to leather and blood to steam. You have maybe a second to realize this is how it ends, not buried in pumice but cooked by the mountain's breath. A second to think of all the things you'll never do. Never see Rome, never marry. Never have children to complain about their lazy generation. Never taste garum again, which, honestly, might be the only silver lining in this whole situation. The heat hits like a physical force. Your nerve endings fire all at once, sending a signal of pain so intense your brain simply shuts off to protect you from it. Unconsciousness is a mercy. Death follows quickly, your body's proteins denaturing, muscles contracting in the heat, freezing you in a final position that will be maintained for the next 2,000 years. You become a statue of volcanic glass and cooked flesh, a monument to the day humans learned that mountains can explode. Your last thought is probably not profound. It's probably, ow. Across Pompeii, 20,000 stories end in variations of the same theme. In homes, in the streets, at the gates where the crowd pressed so thick that people died standing up, held vertical by the press of bodies. In the gladiator barracks where the fighters died in chains, their strength meaningless against geology. In the brothel where worker and customer died in democracy's embrace. In the forum where magistrates discovered that authority means nothing to pyroclastic flows. Power, wealth, strength, beauty, all equally irrelevant to 800-degree gas. The wealthy died clutching their gold, which melted and fused with their bones. The poor died with nothing, which turned out to be exactly as useful as gold against volcanic fury. Slaves and masters died together, social hierarchy finally abolished by thermal dynamics. The old and young, the strong and weak, the virtuous and corrupt, all received the same treatment from Vesuvius. Death, it turns out, is the ultimate equalizer, more effective than any social reform. The city dies in layers. First, the earthquakes weakened it, then the pumice buried it. Finally, the pyroclastic surges cremated it. What had been a thriving resort town becomes a tomb sealed under meters of volcanic debris. The frescoes that depicted gods and heroes are buried. The mosaics that showed daily life are entombed. The graffiti that proved Romans were just as crude and funny as modern humans is preserved. Gaius was here becomes an eternal statement, more permanent than any monument. Herculaneum goes the same way, though with variations. Being closer to the sea, some residents make it to the beach, only to discover that pyroclastic flows don't respect the land-water boundary. They die in boathouses, huddled together, their skeletons to be found millennia, later in positions that show they knew exactly what was coming. The wealthy there had more time to grab their valuables, not that it helped. You can't bribe a volcano. You can't negotiate with physics. The destruction continues for days. Surge after surge races down Vesuvius, each one adding to the burial. The landscape transforms completely. Where once were cities, now there's just grey devastation. The coastline changes. Rivers are rerouted. The fertile fields that made the region wealthy are buried under meters of sterile rock. It's not just urban destruction, it's geographical editing. The mountain has rewritten the map. Pliny the Younger, watching from across the bay, will write the only eyewitness account to survive. He describes the horror with the clinical detachment of someone who lived through it by not being there. His uncle, Pliny the Elder, dies trying to rescue friends, proving that heroism and intelligence aren't always compatible with survival. The younger Pliny's letters will become history's primary source, the ancient equivalent of disaster footage. He writes about the darkness, the falling pumice, the panic. He doesn't write about the smell of cooking flesh, because he's too far away to smell it. Lucky him. Rome reacts with typical Roman efficiency once the danger passes. Relief funds are allocated, probably embezzled, then reallocated. Survivors are resettled. The emperor visits, makes appropriate noises about tragedy and rebuilding, then leaves as fast as possible. There's talk of excavating the cities, but the depth of burial makes it impractical. Besides, Rome has other problems. There are always other problems. Pompeii and Herculaneum become footnotes, then legends, then forgotten. Out of sight, out of mind, out of history. For 1700 years, the cities sleep under their volcanic blanket. Farmers plant vineyards in the rich soil above them, unknowing that their wine grows from the ashes of 20,000 dead. Sometimes artifacts surface. A statue here, a piece of marble there. Locals call the area La Civita, the city, though they don't really know why. It's just always been called that. Collective memory preserves what history forgets. And then, because things weren't bad enough, the column starts to collapse. Not all at once, but in pulses, pyroclastic surges, though you don't know that term. All you know is that walls of superheated gas and rock are racing down the mountain's flanks at speeds that make running pointless. They glow in the darkness, these death clouds, like the mountain is breathing fire. When they hit the edges of the city, buildings don't just burn, they explode. Wood vaporizes. Stone cracks from thermal shock, metal melts. These clouds rewrite the laws of what fire can do. The heat arrives before the surge itself. A wall of air so hot it makes the summer sun feel like a cool breeze. Your exposed skin immediately reddens. Your hair crinkles. The air becomes impossible to breathe, not just from ash, but from temperature. It's like trying to breathe inside an oven. People's screams cut off mid-sound as their lungs cook from the inside. The human body wasn't designed for these temperatures. It's like being hit by an invisible wall of pure heat. You're still too far from the gates. The surge is coming. You can see it rolling across the landscape like a glowing avalanche, swallowing everything. Trees vanish, buildings disappear. People running ahead of it might as well be running from the sunrise. It's beautiful in the way that deadly things sometimes are. This rolling cloud of annihilation, painted in shades of red and orange, and the black of ending. Death has never looked so spectacular. Your mother pulls the family into a building, seeking shelter that doesn't exist. It's a fullery, and the smell of old urine mixed with volcanic gases creates a final insult to your dying senses. Other people have the same idea. The small space fills quickly with terrified humans pressing together, hoping that walls will protect them from physics. They won't. Stone is just a slower way to die. Your sister has stopped crying. She's reached that state beyond fear, where the mind simply refuses to process any more horror. She clutches her doll and stares at nothing with eyes that have seen too much. Your father is praying, running through every god he can remember, offering promises he'll never have to keep. Your mother holds you all close, her practical nature finally overwhelmed by the impractical reality of a mountain exploding. Love is all she has left to give, and she gives it freely. Outside, the surge hits. The building shakes like a struck drum. The temperature spikes beyond human tolerance. The air becomes plasma, superheated gas that turns lungs to leather, and blood to steam. You have maybe a second to realise this is how it ends, not buried in pumice, but cooked by the mountain's breath. A second to think of all the things you'll never do. Never see Rome, never marry. Never have children to complain about their lazy generation. Never taste garum again, which honestly might be the only silver lining in this whole situation. The heat hits like a physical force. Your nerve endings fire all at once, sending a signal of pain so intense your brain simply shuts off to protect you from it. Unconsciousness is a mercy. Death follows quickly, your body's proteins denaturing, muscles contracting in the heat, freezing you in a final position that will be maintained for the next 2,000 years. You become a statue of volcanic glass and cooked flesh, a monument to the day humans learned that mountains can explode. Your last thought is probably not profound, it's probably ow. Across Pompeii, 20,000 stories end in variations of the same theme. In homes, in the streets, at the gates where the crowd pressed so thick that people died standing up, held vertical by the press of bodies. In the gladiator barracks where the fighters died in chains, their strength meaningless against geology. In the brothel where worker and customer died in democracy's embrace. In the forum where magistrates discovered that authority means nothing to pyroclastic flows, power, wealth, strength, beauty, all equally irrelevant to 800-degree gas. The wealthy died clutching their gold, which melted and fused with their bones. The poor died with nothing, which turned out to be exactly as useful as gold against volcanic fury. Slaves and masters died together, social hierarchy finally abolished by thermal dynamics. The old and young, the strong and weak, the virtuous and corrupt, all received the same treatment from Vesuvius. Death, it turns out, is the ultimate equalizer, more effective than any social reform. The city dies in layers. First, the earthquakes weakened it, then the pumice buried it. Finally, the pyroclastic surges cremated it. What had been a thriving resort town becomes a tomb, sealed under meters of volcanic debris. The frescoes that depicted gods and heroes are buried. The mosaics that showed daily life are entombed. The graffiti that proved Romans were just as crude and funny as modern humans is preserved. Gaius was here becomes an eternal statement, more permanent than any monument. Herculaneum goes the same way, though with variations. Being closer to the sea, some residents make it to the beach, only to discover that pyroclastic flows don't respect the land-water boundary. They die in boathouses, huddled together, their skeletons to be found millennia later in positions that show they knew exactly what was coming. The wealthy there had more time to grab their valuables, not that it helped. You can't bribe a volcano, you can't negotiate with physics. The destruction continues for days. Surge after surge races down Vesuvius, each one adding to the burial. The landscape transforms completely. Where once were cities, now there's just grey devastation. The coastline changes. Rivers are rerouted. The fertile fields that made the region wealthy are buried under meters of sterile rock. It's not just urban destruction, it's geographical editing. The mountain has rewritten the map. Pliny the Younger, watching from across the bay, will write the only eyewitness account to survive. He describes the horror with the clinical detachment of someone who lived through it by not being there. His uncle, Pliny the Elder, dies trying to rescue friends. proving that heroism and intelligence aren't always compatible with survival. The younger Pliny's letters will become history's primary source, the ancient equivalent of disaster footage. He writes about the darkness, the falling pumice, the panic. He doesn't write about the smell of cooking flesh, because he's too far away to smell it. Lucky him. Rome reacts with typical Roman efficiency once the danger passes. Relief funds are allocated, probably embezzled, then reallocated. Survivors are resettled. The emperor visits, makes appropriate noises about tragedy and rebuilding, then leaves as fast as possible. There's talk of excavating the cities, but the depth of burial makes it impractical. Besides, Rome has other problems. There are always other problems. Pompeii and Herculaneum become footnotes, then legends, then forgotten, out of sight, out of mind, out of history. For 1700 years, the cities sleep under their volcanic blanket. Farmers plant vineyards in the rich soil above them, unknowing that their wine grows from the ashes of 20,000 dead. Sometimes artifacts surface. A statue here, a piece of marble there. Locals call the area La Civita, the city, though they don't really know why. It's just always been called that. Collective memory preserves what history forgets.